Greetings. Once again, welcome back to Friday morning, January the, gotta double check it, 28th. Okay, we didn't travel, anything weird happen. Once again, January 28th, 2022, 21st century, third decade. I always just love to say that. I just do it. It's my thing. It's my tick, if you will. I'm gonna forego the disclaimer of why I started this channel, so on and so forth, because I just got done doing a video responding to the video I made on the 21st. Now I'm responding to the video I made on the 26th because I got some comments, and that's really what I had intended the whole time. Now this comes from a Brandon Hall. Brandon Hall wrote a lengthy response to my follow-up video on the 26th where the main theme was, can two things be true at the same time? Can multiple things exist at the same time, both good and bad, you know? And specifically regarding Joss Whedon, you know, could Joss Whedon be a brilliant content creator and yet also a monster at the same time? Could different actors and actresses have different experiences with Joss Whedon equally at the same time? Can multiple people feel different ways about Joss Whedon equal at the same time? Hopefully that was reflected well in the video. If not, then just blame it on me. But without further ado, I'm going to read Brandon's comments and respond when necessary along the way. So here we go. Brandon Hall responds, I pride myself on being a person of integrity. I try to maintain an objective lens when it comes to certain subject matters. Admittedly, I have not come to love or admire the works of Joss Whedon, but I respect the accomplishments of his career. To transcend from writing to show running to directing in television to rising to feature film with Serenity and the first two assemblies of the Avengers, Whedon has had a remarkable career. That said, as a person who would also like to transition from writing to other mediums of entertainment, I have always had a keen interest in the behind-the-scenes aspect of film production. Having acquaintances, friends in various fields of entertainment, the truth in many productions fans revere isn't always as idealistic as the shiny final product. And I can tell you, studios have a long history of enabling bad behavior so long as they reach their status quo. Audiences also tend to have short memory when they are pacified with good content, at least when something heinous comes to light. Until there is no denying the subject matter of the scandal. Brandon, I can't argue with any of that. And I agree that perhaps internally I was attempting to overcome some confirmation bias with regards to Whedon's content. But you say some more things in here, so I'm going to get to that before I start to get ahead of myself. Can two things be true at the same time? Sure. There are multiple facets to personalities, depending on what side an individual falls on. Some of the worst tyrants of historical account were loved: spouses, children, siblings, family, friends. Those closest, and often too close to see the complex nature of these individuals, will have far different memories and experiences to the victims. I think because of my somewhat non-attached approach to my subjects, I don't allow myself to form biases or see people as more than people. So the memory isn't quite as short. There had always been people both gracious and hurt that have spoken about Whedon in the past. Some didn't outright name him, but implied as to his character, and it hasn't always been pleasant. But when someone looks at the Avengers, they aren't thinking about what Charisma Carpenter has said in the past about suffering abuses at the hands of powerful individuals, or the fear she had of creating a problem that would prevent her from being able to provide for her family. But it was said and hardly got any traction. Brandon, to that point, I'm not arguing. Reflecting back, I don't know exactly when Charisma Carpenter made her first comment on the subject, but I also went back and watched a portion of the podcast she did with Michael Rosenbaum, and the one thing I will say and comment on is that she wanted to make it clear she didn't want to drop any names, and she didn't want to necessarily use this as some hashtag Me Too propaganda to increase her brand, but she needed to get it off her chest like a matter of catharsis. And I'm paraphrasing that, so I apologize if people don't agree with the paraphrase, but I'm paraphrasing. Uh, People hear strong female representation almost as if programmed into the psyche and overlook the sexualization of said strong females. The script for Whedon's take on Wonder Woman leaked to little fanfare, as it was quite unflattering in ways that would make you question his authenticity as a self-professed feminist. The treatment of the character Black Widow is overlooked for the fact she can hold her own in a fight. Even his own wife, now ex, has spoken out against him, but he had a brand and his name was larger than hers. Okay. Just as it took so long for the likes of Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby or Kevin Spacey, who have all risen to prominent positions in their lives and careers, having whispers and outright accusations leveled at them while protected in their circles and shielded by their brands, eventually their day came. Some of the most brilliant creatives have the darkest souls, and it all depends on who is on the receiving end. Is that really all too hard to believe? No, Brandon, it's not. It wasn't until 2017 and the blatant butchery of a film Whedon should never have agreed to touch in the first place was his brand beginning to see a bit of tarnish. This was also following a split from Marvel Studios, who had its share of people that had tired of his antics during the production of Age of Ultron. As you said, he was really good at flying under the radar, and then he took over the production with a crew he was familiar with, and they wouldn't be quiet when it came to their treatment. Workplace pressure is one thing. Productivity, responsibility, delegation. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. However, it doesn't excuse workplace abuses or behavior, a lot of which is learned when the person in charge has no consequences and the subordinates aren't given a voice, or their voices are muted. No studio worth their salt that want viewership and sales is going to put the victims of abuses front and center to the product helmed by the abuser when they have ratings to consider. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Not to mention, it's not really my department of expertise. They want you to see how they want you to see how fun it was, while those who turned a blind eye benefit because they were either in the right side of things or feared losing what they had as well. Ray Fisher initially wanted him to be held accountable for what he said or what he had done before leveling his own personal accusations. This brought a lot of what seems to be new allegations back to the surface. In actuality, the allegations were spoken more directly because of the refusal of one person to back down, even at the risk of his career. And Fisher's career took a major hit. There was no benefit for him to be had. He not only took on Whedon, but the studio and any other enabling establishment that allowed those behaviors to endure. That is what goes unmentioned and forgotten while detractors attempt to rationalize an obvious wrong. And when Zack Snyder's Justice League was released and it was there to be held next to the 2017 feature, much of what had to be said by those members of the production were validated. Whedon's recent interview did him no favors. Nearly 2 years later, with his tone-deaf assertions and prejudicial remarks, all things to consider, when the mirror has been held up and there was an opportunity to sincerely hold himself accountable, he did not. He pretty much said that a black man had to be puppeted by a white man to be convinced he was mistreated and racially singled out, as though Fisher or any other person of color have no agency of their own to accurately understand what is happening to them or what is said, and that Gadot is so ignorant she couldn't have really understood him, given that English isn't her first language. All of his remarks regarding that or any previous productions were abysmal. No argument here, especially if that's 100% the truth. No argument here. Could he have created a great brand for himself? Absolutely. Could he have touched a lot of people along the way? Indeed. Does that mean he wasn't a monster? Not at all. Monsters wear many faces. They become adept at hiding, wearing the right mask for the right occasion, no different than what we are all inclined to do in our daily lives. The difference is that they are conscious about it. Anyway, those were just some thoughts. Forgive my long-winded rambling. I just hope that opens up a healthy engagement on the subject. Brandon, indeed it does. But you were not done. You had one last comment. I can also tell that I can also tell you that I do know someone personally that has worked with Joss Whedon. Just a side note, I've always been of the mind, no matter who it is, where there is smoke, there is likely fire. Accountability should be held at every level of every profession, and no matter the title, no matter the position, there is a standard of ethics to be adhered to, especially to those of higher authority. Acting like a boss is not belligerence, belittling, or chest beating. It's firm guidance with a level of respect that drives performances across whatever respective industry. So, Brandon, thank you very much for that. Very objective, very insightful. Also seems as though it was well researched. And thank you for what appears to be getting the point of what I was trying to say. Is it possible that Joss, while being a brilliant content creator in any shape, whether as a writer, screenwriter, producer, director, could that be true? Yeah, it could be true. Could he have been abusive? Yes, that could be true. Could he have been selectively abusive? Yes, that could be true. All things could be true. And just like you said, and if you've heard other actors talk about it before, especially if you're in the entertainment industry, some actors have often said that their favorite character to play is the villain, because the villain is the hero of his or her story. The villain does not see themselves as a villain. So again, all these various things could be true. And if there was ever the impression I was attempting to excuse Joss's behavior, that's not it at all. I was, however, trying to take on the position that without having been there, without talking to people that I personally trust as witnesses, I don't know that I can actually I don't know that I can form an opinion as a fact. Like, I don't know that I could be like the Wikipedia where I could say Joss is a monster. I could agree that what's been said depicts him as a monster, and if 100% true, yeah, makes him look, what's the word I'm looking for? Not two-faced, but like kind of like a chimera, if you will, where he can be brilliant and a monster at the same time. The bigger takeaway I may not have done a really good job at was when I formed this channel a little over a year ago, my major focus was trying to overcome how the media portrays information. And I don't mean entertainment media as much as, say, social media, legacy media, whether it's Google, whether it's Wikipedia, whether it's whatever source that we use to gather information. I was attempting to overcome the media's interpersonal bias and how the media is being explicitly, overtly biased, creating clickbait, creating narratives, shaping content to shaping it into focus to focus specifically on the context they want to reflect. And I was just trying to ask the question, is it really what it is? Is Joss really the monster that he's being touted as, or is it the media? And Brandon, with responses like yours, you seem to transcend the media perspective, where you've done a little bit more research and you've tried to collate some information to make a more informed opinion. And I personally really appreciate that, especially with how you expressed yourself, in a, hey, we might not agree, but here's my thoughts, allowing me to respond like I'm doing right now. So for that, I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much for that. It wasn't too long, in my opinion. You take as much time as necessary to convey your thoughts and make sure you shape the context to support it exactly how you want it to be said. All right, and I have nothing against what you said, and I don't have anything against how long it was or the time that it took. And thank you again for getting involved. And for anybody else who watches, all right, I normally average between 0 to a whopping 2 viewers. So the fact that this the fact that any of my videos are reaching a broader audience is kind of cool. My typical audience has been my tight little circle of friends, a lot of which are not necessarily offered the opportunity to respond due to the fact that I live in a military community. So a lot of my friends are still either attached in some way, shape, or form to the government, whether they're still on active duty or in some capacity they work for the federal government in some capacity, and therefore they have to limit their exposure on stuff like YouTube. But it was kind of like that echo chamber effect where my friends and whatnot that were responding in some way, shape, or form were echoing what I was saying. So it's nice to get feedback from complete strangers, and it's nice to get feedback that is not necessarily echoing what I'm saying, but providing a different perspective. So again, I've probably said it numerous times, thank you. And I'll check this video, make sure that it's appropriate, and if so, I'll get it produced and put on the old interwebs. So for those of you that did take the time to watch, thank you once again. Sorry if it took a little bit longer than normal, but you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you got to take as long as you need to convey your thoughts. Till we meet again. Greetings. One saved round. Brandon, I didn't do a good enough job acknowledging this because in my video I spoke about how is it possible that in today's modern era, you know, intersectionality, martyr status, victim status, is it possible for actors and actresses to potentially take advantage of the modern social trends to create a false martyr status to increase their brand status? And you address that when you discuss the fact that when Ray Fisher brought to light some of the disparities he had with Joss Whedon, and I don't remember if you said Ray quoted Josh or somebody else quoted Josh, but you exclaimed that Joss Whedon had said something within direct reference to Ray's skin complexion. Frustratingly, I've got nothing to say as far as if I was attempting to be a devil's advocate in any way, shape, or form and defend Joss Whedon, because there's really no defense to that. Ray Fisher taking a massive hit to his career, as you stated, I wasn't aware of that. I did acknowledge it as a potential consequence, not referring to Ray, but just in general. I wasn't aware of that. I enjoyed his performance as Cyborg in the Justice League series and whatnot. I'm not familiar with his work that I know of prior to the Justice League, and I'm also not familiar with any work he may have done post-Justice League. To include, I wasn't familiar until you mentioned it, that he's potentially taken any hits to his career as a result of speaking out. With regards to Joss Whedon making racially disparaging comments towards Ray Fisher, I don't have a defense for that. I don't. The only thing I could say, acting as a devil's advocate, is in my own life, have I potentially said things in an irrational state out of anger that I can reflect upon and be like, man, I did not handle that as best as humanly possible, and I didn't say what I should have said. My conduct and behavior was inappropriate. Yeah, that's happened, and I can reflect on life, and I can own up to that. Tragically, it's oddly disappointing because I've always thought of Joss Whedon as somebody who was a bit of a pioneer in the realm of inclusiveness, whether that was sexual preference inclusion, ethnicity inclusion, you know, just other concepts, you know, of inclusiveness. And, you know, it's just kind of disturbing, you know, to hear that that might not be true. That was one of the things that kind of drew me to his content, was how he tried to explore all these other concepts. You know, and it's possible that that's not true, and it's possible that maybe he and Ray were not getting along, and, you know, Joss spoke poorly. To which case, as far as I know, he has not tried to correct himself. He has not tried to correct those accusations or respond to those allegations, so there's really no defending it. And again, to potentially clarify my position, and I apologize for extending this video. Like I said, two things being true. Can I also enjoy Joss's content while not necessarily agreeing that he's the greatest person of character? Yeah, I think that can be true. I think I can enjoy his creations, but maybe just not enjoy him as a person or his content. I know to a degree I'm not a big fan of his politics, but that's neither here nor there. You know, just like you said, you don't enjoy his creations, but you can respect the talent and what it, you know, and what he's accomplished. Beyond that, you know, if all things are true, it's really hard to defend, even as a devil's advocate. It's really hard to defend any of that stuff, whether it was the Gail Gadot comment, and the Ray Fisher stuff. The only thing I will say is this: getting back to the point of me starting this channel is, where are those sources coming from and how reliable are those sources? I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm just saying my overarching theme was challenging our ability to interpret the media as being the purveyors of 100% truth, and whether or not that is truth, because this whole thing got started in the last week or so when I made that video, and the biggest thing I wanted to highlight was Jensen Ackles elaborated on a topic, and then the media took it and went in a completely different direction, almost as if they were trying to stir the pot. So hopefully you see where I'm going with that, and hopefully anybody else watching this can see where I'm going with that. But man, I really need to shut up, because this video is going to approach a half hour, and who wants to sit there and watch this and listen to this for a half an hour? All right, everybody, enjoy your weekend.